Here's the funny thing, Ramona, is that, and you hit on a number of great points. One, I think with Nico, and I've been knowing Nico a long time.
Yeah.
I think he can confidently go into that press conference with his chest out, knowing that he had the ownership had his back. First and foremost. So you don't make a deal like this in the vacuum without having ownership being on board.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think ownership in the Adelson family, their bigger picture is the business side. They didn't draft Luka. Mark Cuban, they bought the team from. They kind of took away a lot of his day-to-day operations, even though at the beginning it was that he was going to run the day-to-day. No, slowly got away from that. So they're coming in here from what their business model is for the Mavericks, and it may not entail what it was, in the past. And they're able to deal with that. They say, look, the long-term play for us is A. We'll deal with some of the backlash short-term to reach our long-term goal, whatever that is. And by empowering Nico to do that, he can step out there and take all the hits, even though a lot are unnecessary, because you said this. Nico looked great for being able to get a Kyrie to change his perception and how he played and how he was viewed. By getting Gafford, by PJ Washington. He was looked at this genius to bring this team to get them to a championship. And then all of a sudden he's going to make a decision like this that makes no sense. Yeah. And I understand where I spent 5.5 years in Dallas. That's where I matured as a young man. I understand the vitriol and the way the fans feel. But you got to keep in mind, it's not Nico by himself and why this deal went down. It's ownership being able to say, this is what I agree upon. This is where we want to go. And Nico had the tool, because of that relationship with Rob Pelinka, to keep this thing under wraps. He couldn't take it out to the market without Luka and AD finding out.
That's DOA. Okay, so here's the thing, like, let me present you with the alternative, okay?
Okay.
Let's say that they had decided internally, like between Nico, J. Kidd, and the ownership, et cetera, Michael Finley's there, Dirk, they probably would have looped in Cuban. There would have been a big debate internally. Should we give Luka the Supermax? Should we do that? Do we feel comfortable? If we're not going to give him the Supermax, then how are we going to play this? Okay, if we're going to trade him, you know what some franchises would have done? They would have started leaking bad stuff on him. They would have started putting a bad story out here and there. They would have started to tarnish his reputation a little bit with the fan base. They would have, we've seen this happen in the NBA. You've been around a long time, right?
Me, I've been around.
Right? So you could have seen that slow drip of teams, of information coming out, trying to kind of assail his character, trying to tarnish his reputation of the franchise. They could have, all the whatever skeletons are in the closet, they would have started coming out little by little. What does that do? That depresses his value, that tarnishes his reputation with the franchise, that makes fans not like him rather than not like the franchise. And I think it tanks the season. So now if you're Luka and you start seeing these kind of stories coming out, or you start seeing this type of information coming out, you're feeling betrayed. You're feeling upset. And your chance to win this year and defend your Western Conference championship and go into the finals is now history. Now, most franchises, I would say 90% of franchises would probably choose that route, because they would not want to incur the kind of wrath that the Dallas Mavericks are incurring right now from their fans. They would make the fans hate the player, not hate the team. I've seen this a lot in my 20 years covering the NBA. And I think that sucks. Why do you got to point? Look, you brought up De'Aaron Fox, okay? I feel like in Sacramento, he never asked for a trade. De'Aaron never asked them to trade him. He just said, I'm not ready to sign a long-term extension. Okay, and he knew that would force the franchise to think, should we keep him, should we not? But when Mike Brown got fired, one of the last public things that people saw was Mike Brown calling out De'Aaron Fox on a defensive adjustment, and basically, the next day he gets fired at the end of a game, right? They lose that game, he gets fired. And I wrote a story about that. I talked to De'Aaron, and he kept talking to me about, hey, I really like Mike. We had a really good relationship. He sent me a grade after every practice. I wanted him to be hard on me. Like he had a good relationship with Mike Brown. And yet because of the way that went down and because no one has spoken publicly about why they fired Mike Brown, it stuck to him. Like fans kind of thought, well, maybe De'Aaron got Mike fired. When you're close to the franchise, I'm close to the franchise.
Yep.
Like, I don't think that was the case at all.
No.
I don't think that was the case at all. I think there might have been some other players that were okay. I don't think anybody rushed in and said fire him, but I think there might have been some other players that were more okay with that. But why let that stick to De'Aaron if you're trying to keep him and talk him into staying? And now the way they traded him, he never asked for a trade. Let's keep putting it out there. They made an independent decision to say, now's the time. Let's just do this. If he's not going to sign long term, let's just do this. Totally fair on their part. I think it's a smart move where you can decide or debate whether they got the right return. I think they did a good job. I think Zach LaVine's a good player. I really like Zach. He's had a good year. You know, they were able to kind of clean up some of their cap situation.
Cap stuff,
and I think you know, and I think they'll be able to compete for a while with that franchise. I think he'll fit right alongside Sabonis. But you know, I think some fans in Sacramento probably are wondering, did De'Aaron ask out?
Of course.
He did not ask out.
Right.
But now instead of people hating the franchise, now they hate the player.
Check out new episodes of The Jim Jackson Show every Thursday. Watch on The Rich Eisen Show YouTube page. Follow the show on Instagram @Jim Jackson Show, or listen wherever you get your podcasts.